Hello, everybody. Here we are, live. This looks good. Just check out here. Just a little bigger. There we go. And so, hey, everyone. Welcome aboard. This is the Shortwave Shoe, the Saturday edition, where we're going to talk about radio as usual. Tune demands. I've got my AirSpy HF Plus Discovery running. I've got my Texan PL990X running, and we're going to just have fun, talk about radio, and enjoy a Saturday of geeking out radio. So hope that you enjoy the show today. And of course, we are live twice a week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That is technically Thursday UTC, and it is Thursday for pretty much the rest of the world at 0 hours UTC. And we are live on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 20 hours Universal Time. And we talk about radio. There's a beautiful chat room where you can join the fun if you want to. And it's really a great place to be. Whether you're an expert, a beginner, this is the place where you have a lot of fun. And this is the place where people are helpful, can ask questions, can exchange with everybody, have fun. We're all here together to have fun with what we love, which is radio, shortwave radio, any kind of radio. When the party is over, well, we've got a Facebook group, has the same name as the YouTube channel, official SWL channel, and hopefully that is also a place that you'll like to be, and continue sharing and just have fun with pretty much the same gang of wonderful people that just want to hang out and share what they're listening to, show pictures of their radios, and so on. Lots of fun to be here. In the coming week, I expect to do some radio outdoors a little bit because in the coming week, we're going to have some warm weather. It's going to be summer like. Starting Monday, we're going to start getting into the 70s and 80s. It's supposed to be 30 degrees Celsius on Thursday, which is close to not far from 90 Fahrenheit. So it's going to last a few days, and then it's going to go back down. But we expect to have some nice weather. So if you see walk in the park videos, don't be surprised because there are probably going to be quite a few of them to have fun with radio. Once again, I'll use different radios and go where it's actually much quieter in terms of radio noise, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And unfortunately, I could maybe try, but I'm not sure because as you guys know, I take care of somebody that needs a lot of help, so I can't really get out very long. So I don't think that going to Perry Island or any park like that for a little de-expedition will be possible. But walk in the park videos definitely could be possible since the park is only 5 minutes away. So at least I'll be able to do that and have some fun. So welcome aboard, everyone, and of course I've got my traditional drink, which is the vodka. Sorry, guys, vodka cranberry. So cheers, everyone. I'm gonna take a little sip here. Cheers. And let's say hello. Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL. Nice to have you here from Louisiana. VA3JPX. Nice to have you here, James, from Ottawa. Kenneth Copeland. Nice to have you on board. Nick Sharp. Nice to have you here from South England. Michael. Nice to have you here from Illinois. Randall. Nice to have you here from Northeast Illinois. Matt, MDK2. Nice to have you here from Denver, Colorado. And he's doing some gardening. Cool. David, KJ4CMY, nice to have you here from Central Georgia. Fazlo, nice to have you on board from Montreal with some CB skip. Let's go and check out here what we got on the SDR. I'm going to go on 27025 and check out what we've got. Yeah, there's some skip definitely here. I see some peaks here and there. I see some peaks here and there on the CB channels. So there's definitely some stuff happening. So what else do we have? Robert Cross, nice to have you here. The Rorax, nice to have you on board. Wonder if you could belt out a couple of courses of Space Oddity for your fans. If I do that, I'm going to have monetization cut on the channel. By the way, you guys, if you see that the chat has new icons on the bottom, including one with a dollar sign, I turned on the super chat stuff, so they are available for anyone in case. Of course, they are not free. They're there to monetize or help monetize the channel. I thought, yeah, there's no harm in actually having them enabled. And so you use them if you want or not, and that's it. Christian Marcoux, salut, j'espère que ça va bien. Nice to have you on board from North Bay, Ontario. Artisanal Crafter's Kitchen, nice to have you here. And from Massachusetts. And yeah, I'm feeling, I'm not bad today. I actually had kind of a week of, last week, I had a week of, actually 2 weeks ago, I had a week of kind of feeling under the weather, as they say. But now it's not too bad. It's just my shoulder still killing me a little bit. Well, not too bad today, but try to do the physiotherapy that I have to do. So hopefully it's going to get better. Glenn, nice to have you here, KB9IN. And nice to have you on board. Richard, nice to have you here. You're like the friend I had when I was a videographer and had a question. I would call him on the phone. You are there by this chat. So much good information about shortwave and antennas. Thank you. Cool, Richard. Always nice to have you here. Tarek, nice to have you on board from Cairo, Egypt. Serge, nice to have you here from Switzerland. And what else do we have? What else do we have? Fast load. Some out of band. 27455 upper sideband. So it's kind of oh, look at that. Kevin, nice to have you here. That's visible. I didn't know how it worked, and now I know. What else do we have? We have Chuck. Nice to have you here. Good afternoon. And N5 KVO from hot, sunny South Texas. Currently 95 in the shaded back patio. So it might hit 100. That's gonna be quite hot. I like temperatures when they could reach like in the 80 Fahrenheit ish. When I'm at the beach, yeah, it's fun when it's very hot, but when you're not at the beach, it's not the same thing. You're just like, yeesh. So thank you, Kevin. What else do we have? DJW883, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. Wiki live with the PL660. So here I've got the PL990 and the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery right now. Bonjour PLF Radio, bienvenue. J'espère que ça va bien. Nice to have you on board from France. ManMax 2069, nice to have you here. Al, nice to have you on board. Shelly, nice to have you on board from cold South Central Pennsylvania. Rainy and cold. J Projects, nice to have you here. René Charbonnier from Radio Classic Sunday. PD3RKD, nice to have you on board, my friend. William Helms, nice to have you here from Florida. And what else do we have? iMapper, nice to have you on board from Moscow, Russia. Pretty cool. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you here. WA0113 is WL. Nice to have you on board. Always cool to have everybody here. Meta Lunar, nice to have you here. Fast load. It is still my Radio Shack DX440 as avatar picture on the channel. I just noticed. Yes, it's still the. I took that picture for the avatar on long time ago when you had it up, and I never changed it. Actually, I always kept that picture. I thought it was looked great like that. Richard Wagner, nice to have you here from Northeast Illinois. RJDA Dakota, 94 degrees here by Tuesday. That's hot. Jeff Williams, nice to have you here, Southwest Cornwall. Current IT guy, nice to have you on board. Lunar, do you do much more medium wave listening these days, or has most of your time been listening on shortwave? I don't do a lot of medium wave. I tend to do more of shortwave stuff. So this is really what I gather, I do the most. But I did a little bit last week when there was that DX test from that station down in Georgia, which surprised me that I could actually hear it. I heard the sweet tones and the Morse code and all of that. So it's kind of cool to get that. But medium wave is not. I should take more time to do medium wave because there's some interesting stuff in there that definitely can make it, and especially on the channels where there's like this mishmash of different stations all in packed together and trying to ID some of them in there. Kind of fun. What else do we have? I know which radio you won't be taking on those walks. Well, you never know. I might bring it along just for the fun, but yeah, don't expect me to do a lot of walk in the park videos with the Angrongda for sure. What else do we have? Wiki, is broadcast not better than internet concerning energy consumption? Well, if you are broadcasting on shortwave to a big audience, definitely it's probably, even though the transmitters consume a lot of power, it's probably not bad compared to, of course, all the what's the biggest problem with internet and all of that is the data centers. All these data centers scattered everywhere consume an enormous amount of energy. Actually, here, because the energy is cheap for electricity and all of that, a lot of data centers actually install themselves here in Quebec because of the cheap electricity, because they consume an enormous amount of power. And then there's the cooling, which is why Microsoft is actually doing tests of putting data centers in the bottom of the ocean to cool them down. And that, of course, that brings me to a question that I'm wondering. I mean, over one, if you have a dozen data centers in the ocean, okay, but if you fill up the ocean with data centers, wouldn't it kind of warm up the ocean at some point because of all of them over there? If there would be a good quantity, a big bunch of them, I don't know, kind of weird. Kimberly, K6YYL. Nice to have you here from California. Eric Cottrell, bonjour. Hi. Nice to have you here from Boston. We have David. So I can empathize. I am taking care of two injured people and an over anxious dog. So takes a lot of energy and consumes a lot of your time. So it's kind of difficult. Dimitri, nice to have you on board, my friend. Richard, if you're outside, do overhead power line affect noise? Yeah, well, try. You have to try to be as far away as possible from the power lines. That's for sure. Power lines will tend to maybe add noise to your listening. So you try to get somewhere as far away as possible from the those power lines. Like for example, when I go to Perry Islands, the expeditions, there is actually high powered uh, electricity lines that go across the island on the west side. So what I do is I go on the extreme east side as far away as possible from them, near the water if I can. Often, very often, sometimes I'll bring a foldable chair so I can sit down next to the water and just have fun there. And so I'm as far away from the power lines as possible because if you get close, you definitely start getting more noise. There's also all sorts of effect if you have high powered lines. Um, what happens also is that the magnetic fields created by these power lines sometimes can also um, you can also kind of have all sorts of weird effect happening with the radio and the signals. um, it reminds me of when I was always surprised when I was young and we were going through the going up north and we would pass through some high powered electricity lines, and I was always surprised that if you were listening to AM radio, that when we would pass underneath the AM radio, reception would go away for a moment as we're crossing just below, and then it'd come back once we crossed the power lines. It's kind of I always found that funny. Zen Pharaohs, but following along with a bowl of stew, some chocolate milk, FRG7, and 8 Shift Plus Discovery. Cool. Wiki is from Germany. Nice to have you here. Bob Cantor, nice to have you on board from Long Island. AP2FLY, nice to have you here from Pakistan, my friend. Jason, VE9JMC, nice to have you on board. And says, nice to be here after recovering from COVID. So cool. Hope that you felt better and that you weren't too sick. Curtis IT guy. So I have a question. Does anybody have an idea about getting an MLE30 line into the house? Like an idiot, I cut the old one in the window, thinking about drilling a hole in the wall. Look, there's a few things you can do. There's that. Some people actually have these a little very thin pass-through wires that they put in the window. That would work as long as as you keep the contact, the connections correct, so that the electricity will power the antenna. But yeah, it is definitely a something that is not always easy when depending if you rent or if you have your own home. But definitely, if you can drill a hole and pass the wire, just that definitely is a good idea. And we got to be careful. That wire on the MLA30 is thin and easy to break. So if you close, if you close the window too hard, you can easily break that wire. It's like the coax. Here, I passed my coax because in the backyard, the door has so much space underneath that I can actually pass a big coax. But I have to be careful where under the door I'm going to put the coax because it's easy to squash it if it's too close to the corner of the door. And that could break the coax, of course. Uh, Ralph's house. Nice to have you here about a TS 930 a couple of days ago. And says, amazed at reception on 20 meters this week. Yep, conditions been good. Fred Water, nice to have you on board, my friend. 0-100, nice to have you here. KD2ANN, New Jersey, replacing the power supply board of is JRC NRC NRD525 afternoon project. Cool. Tom DXer, nice to have you here from Hudson Valley, New York, WPE2QED. Michael, nice to have you on board from Poland. And all the best to you too. Mike Water, nice to have you here. Kathleen, nice to have you here from Germany. Thanks everybody, by the way, for the little amounts of money for different things that you guys have been using for the super chat and all. It's greatly appreciated. So yep, Bobby Burgess has enabled the super chat. Well, I've been getting constant messages from YouTube saying, why not enable it? Why not enable it? And I've resisted for a long time, but I thought it can't hurt, and it's a great way for fans to give you a little something for support if you want. So I thought, nah, okay, why not? It's different ways of YouTube to there's another thing that they're kind of pushing on YouTube right now, and it's subscriptions, where you could have content if you would subscribe and pay an amount, which I don't want, because I don't want to have this special content for people that pay. I don't like that way of working. I don't want to, have anybody out of any videos or anything. I'd rather, keep the videos and just so that everybody can see them, and that's it. Sorry, guys. Keegan DXer, nice to have you on board, my friend. Reception with his Ethan Grundig Field BT and Ethan Grundig Edition satellite with SSB. Nice to have you on board. And Robert Cross says, great stream, buying another radio tomorrow. Cool. Thanks for the tip here. What else do we have? Jeff Laramie, nice to have you here from Wisconsin. We have Michael from New Jersey, Northern New Jersey. Nice to have you here. Larry Gilmore, nice to have you on board. Michael, antenna farms for tabletop radios, they're still popular. Well, a lot of people that have the space, if you have tabletop receivers and you have the space, there's still still a lot of people that will build all sorts of antennas to simply make sure they can enjoy that radio even more. So that's kind of cool. Larry, N2ICZ, nice to have you on board from New Jersey, and in the middle of a rainy northeastern. Yeah, I saw. It's funny because I was worried about what the weather would be this weekend, because I was looking at the weather maps, and on the weather map I could see that big storm on the East Coast, and I was like, wow. And I looked at the weather here, and it's like, nope, we're not getting any of it. It's going to stay sunny for the whole week. So kind of cool. Kind of cool. Philip Formby, nice to have you here. Xenopharaohs 9940, Voice of Freedom, not showing up on schedules. This is WTWW. They're calling themselves the Voice of Freedom on 9940 as they're kind of broadcasting that frequency for Ukraine. So it's WTWW, actually, that you're listening on 9940. Art Dodd, nice to have you here from New Jersey, K2ADC. Mad Max, I might take it in a different kind of walk to the dumpster. Alan, nice to have you on board. He's upgraded his DX394 for a Yaesu VR5000. Cool. Enjoy. Have fun with that. Keegan DX had his first FMDX e-skip of the year. And on Friday at 6 in the evening, stations from South Carolina. Cool. PLF Radio, I like your videos with the Hanrongda and the Panasonic. Yeah, more with the Panasonic. I'm going to try to do more this week with the Panasonic. I'm going to do a little more with the Hanrongda just to compare with different radios. In all fairness, the only, if I only want to listen to international broadcasts, there will probably be a walk in the park video for international broadcasts because that is the thing that it does well. The only thing that it does well. As for the man, I played with single sideband the other day with it again because I was trying to find how the hell am I tuning to get a clearer voice. It's definitely junk on single sideband, unfortunately, because it receives it, but you just have to fiddle with that thing crazy just to get a clear voice on single sideband. We have what else do we have? Oh yeah, that Hanrongda on SSB is a tough one. It's like you're actually the Hanrongda. You hope that it's as precise as possible when you get it, so you don't have to filter too much with this single sideband stuff. Neil Rigby from Nottingham, UK. Nice to have you on board. David KJ4CMY, one of the radials for Europe #1. Germany went across the road, wiped out reception, and everything else went passing under. Oh yeah, I'm sure the radio probably completely desensitized because of the strong signal. Keegan DX this morning had FM DX Tropo via and eSkip in Northwest Arkansas. So cool. Philip Formby, thank you very much for the tip. Richard, going to take my PL368 when I go fishing later this month. Should be great reception out there by the lake. Oh, definitely. Low noise near water. You're going to have a lot of fun and hear a lot of stuff. I'll have a beer on you, Philip. No problem. Thanks for the tip. Catalin says on Amazon you can find BNC or SMA window pass-through made from flexible tin PCB foil, so you can check that out. Greg, nice to have you here. Let me just try to find my spot again that I lost. Moon Vision. I have my MLA30 hung indoors above an upstairs window. Recently moved my Wi-Fi router directly below it. Definitely interfering with reception via the loop on my SDR play. Oh yeah, you got to try to keep these things as far away as from the antenna as possible. Mad Max 2069, been wanting to modify my MLA30 by doing away with the permanent wire and putting on a connector so I can move the coax and replace it. A lot of people did that mod, actually. A lot of people did that mod. So hello, Greg. Nice to have you on board. Gabrielle, nice to have you on board from Uruguay. CX0032SWL. Nice to have you here. Harold Anderson from Oslo, Norway, LB1NH. Nice to have you here. Tristan in Newfoundland. Nice to have you on board. 1 degree Celsius. Youch, that's cold. Gary Pence. Nice to have you here, Gary. KM5X in Dallas. Lord, nice to have you on board. Lord Kitchener from Tennessee with his Sony ICF 2010. Cool radio. Thank you for the tip, Richard Califano. SV O'Rourke, nice to have you on board from Hawaii. Pretty cool. Carol, W7WXV, nice to have you here from Oregon. Kathleen says ICOM IC705 seems a great portable SDR receiver, transceiver. Quite expensive though. Is it really worth it? It can be hacked for CB. Well, it's a transceiver, so of course, anybody that has a ham license, or if you plan to have a ham license, one thing for sure, you're already getting something that is good for all of what you want to do. If you're getting a transceiver, you're definitely going to get probably a good receiver, and at the same time, you already have a transceiver for your ham license, or if it's modified for CB, you can use it on the CB bands or 11 meters if you don't, if you want to. What else do we have? Philip had an email from Ethan. The Elite is coming in Q3 this year, so we'll see what how it is. It should have had DRM. It's going to be expensive when I see the price that they're going to ask for it, which is like $699. It should have had DRM. That would have maybe make me want to have one if it had DRM. SV O'Rourke at NHK on 11800 at 1730. Half hour of Bob Marley music. That's interesting. TB Ostrowski, nice to have you here from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Current IT guy says, thinking it's the hole in the house method. I'll go. I figure a small 38-0 should work and just caulk well afterwards. Yeah, that's, definitely the way to go in general. If you can do it, I have no problem. No problem. Barry, nice to have you here. Dmitry, have you tried Ukrainian vodka, Nemirov? It is good to drink from the cold. It has honey and pepper in it. No, I've never tried. I never tried any. I've never tried any Ukrainian, liquor of any kind. So I'm going to check that out if I can find some. If I can find some, they've had some. I was curious this week. They have a new one. I don't remember now the name because I saw it on the shelf. They had quite a few news because they removed all the Russian vodka here. There's no more Russian vodka on the shelves. But what they did is they replaced it with all sorts of other types of vodka that I've never seen before. So maybe I should try a different brand and see how it tastes. Harold Anderson just had a contact with Svalbard on 14166 WJ4D. Cool. Pele Frazio, what do you think of their hung wrong on VHF, UHF? It's really not sensitive. It stops only on the really strong signals. And when I compare it with, like a basic scanner, which is what I compared it with, and most signals that the scanner can pick up when it's not, when the weaker signals, it doesn't hear them at all. So it's very insensitive on the VHF, UHF range. Somebody was saying, well, it could be a good radio for air band. Not even for that. It's so insensitive that it will miss out on most of the weaker planes or the weaker communications. It's definitely not. And I always say the same thing. Um, if you are serious about like airband and listening, and you go to air shows and stuff like that, you're way better off with even a basic scanner that scans a million times faster than the shortwave radios with the airband on it. And in general, my tests are kind of showing that the airband, even on the same GNATS 909X2, the XH data, the airband is okay, but it's definitely more sensitive on a dedicated scanner than on those radios. So you're better off buying a shortwave radio for your shortwave needs, but buying a basic scanner radio if you do a lot of airband listening, stuff like that. What else do we have? Just catch up where I was. Michael, 380 DSP, $29. Not bad. Not bad. Two broke Tim, you can't fight progress. Internet broadcasting is the future. It's not. It's not. Because nobody really broadcasts or listens to anything through the internet on terms of broadcasting. The streaming of music and stuff like that works, but people do not listen to broadcast through the internet. And it's much simpler to listen to with a radio than anything internet. But it's not really. I can't see that really working. It doesn't work already really much. The numbers are kind of showing that people, when they want to listen to something, they rather turn on an AM/FM radio, for example, than to have it streamed over a device or a computer. So unless things really change, I don't see that for broadcasting. I see that for I mean, it's obvious a lot of us do, and I do. I listen to music streams and stuff like that. That is what people do mostly, but not really much broadcasting. Apart from doing some music streaming, the only broadcast that I might listen to online is something that has to do with like the BBC World Service, maybe. But I do almost none of that, and I rather listen with a radio, which is much simpler. You got to also remember one thing is that 3 billion people around the world do not have internet, and a couple of billion more have crappy internet, and a lot of internet access are not unlimited. A lot of internet access have data caps. So people don't want to stream. Any stations through their devices because they're going to use up their data cap. Uncle Justin, nice to have you on board. KB2RM Senior, Rochester, New York. Had a 2-meter SSB opening earlier. 325 miles. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Michael, MLA 30, 2 long wires, and a dipole on the roof. Cool. Yep, Facebook group is still there, Catalin. Absolutely. Jason, we're at 2,600-ish members right now. Jason V9JMC, I've done the mod where I replaced the original coax and mounted a B and C connector so that it can use the loop with different cables. It's easier. Planted aquariums. I have much noise in my building today. I followed your advice and went to a nearby park, awesome signals, but a neighbor recognized me and he became the noise. Any solutions to filter out these? Yeah, the only solution I know is you have to tell them to buzz off, which is not necessarily what we do in general, but I know what you mean. I went it's like last summer. I went to the park one day with my little portable, and there's this little old lady, 3 or 4 houses down. Every time she sees me, she starts talking to me. And by chance, she was in the park, so it's like she gets next to me, and she first of all, she asked me a couple of questions about the radio, but then she starts talking and talking and talking and talking. I spent an hour and a half there. I think I listened to the radio 10 minutes. It's like, well, oh well, next time. Unfortunately, that's the problem. Is either you have no friends that will fix the problem. Nobody's gonna talk to you, or uh, it's not always easy, especially with some people. Some people, they just always they talk and talk and talk and talk. It's like, wow, you know we all have been there, like the person's talking to you, and in your head you're like, oh god, how can I end the conversation? What can I do to end the conversation? Mitri got is Grundy God Boy 400 receiver right now. Everyone who finds it interesting frequency, please share it. Alan, my issue with the 705 is the price of new is almost the same as the price of the 7300, which is 100 watts output. Yeah, the 705 is lower output. Depends what you want to do. For people that want to do, QRP, low power, it's kind of cool. QRP Adventures, what's my number one favorite receiver in my collection? Kind of hard to really pinpoint one, but I would say that if I would pick a favorite, one that I love is, in a portable, I would say in the Texan H501X. I love that radio. It's really nice. But then again, I would also pick the SDR Player SPDX because I love the SDR. So, I can't say I have a definite favorite. It's more of I have several radios that are go-to radios for me all the time. Tony Exter, that Ethon 699 price won't last long. I don't know how many you're going to sell at that price, but Michael, do you ever discuss headphones and the difference between them? It's one of the things that we don't talk about that much, but definitely, you know what? When we are on listening to the radio, having a good pair of headphones is actually definitely a very good thing because you can definitely, especially when you do, some DXing and you're in the noise, some signals really weaken the noise. You definitely have an advantage in using headphones to try to, pinpoint and try to get the station and hear what it is. Um, so it is definitely something we don't talk about much, but a good pair of headphones is definitely something that is a must. And we talk about sound quality on a lot of the radios, and some of them have very average sound from the speaker on the radio itself. And what we forget to mention, well, a few of you mention it from time to time, but what we forget to mention is that a lot of these radios have amazing sound once you plug a set of headphones on them. And it makes a big difference. It makes night and day, from the listening standpoint. So definitely a good pair of headphones is something to think about when you get radio. And added bonus, a lot of these radios, most portables, will give you stereo FM through the headphones. So that also is a bonus. Simon Templar, nice to have you on board. Tom the Exer, Russian vodka gun from here too. People were pouring it down into the sewers. Here's the first day that they of the invasion. They just took it off of the shelves. They said, nope, no Russian vodka, no Russian of anything. And that's fine. I would not have purchased anything from Russia, anyways. I think um, it's not bad at all. It's like that. um, Man Max 2069 for the price that Ethan is going to fetch. It should do everything, including the kitchen sink. Mickey Dalmage, nice to have you here from Shortwood Park. 1 ear on you and one eye on the hockey game. And the other eye and ear are wandering. Current IT guy, hard to find, but look for Ukrainian Orilka Pestivka. Distilled hot peppers. Huh, good stuff, but not for those with a weak stomach. Okay. We have here a Ukrainian festival every year that I love going to. It is in September, and they do that at the park. When I do my walk in the park videos, it's that park they use for the festival. And man, I love going there for 2 to 3 times. Um, 2 to 3 times during the weekend that are there and eat the Ukrainian food. And oh man, it's just so cool. They have a beer garden with Ukrainian beer, and I believe, you know what, I should check, but I think they have Ukrainian vodka there. Should check when they come back in September. But boy, do I love that festival. It's really a lot of fun, and they have the traditional dances and all sorts of things happening. The music, it feels, you get to the park and you feel like you're somewhere else for a weekend. I can't wait for that to come back. They haven't had it for 2 years because of the pandemic. So hopefully this year it's back and it's going to be a lot of fun. What else do we have? Very well. Most. I don't know if it's everywhere it's going to happen, but I know that most places are taking out anything Russian. Tristan, could you give a quick rundown on DRM, a little in the dark on this one? So DRM, Digital Radio Mondiale, is a digital mode used for broadcasting. It's been around for a long time, and it's been pushed a lot on radio stations. One of the stations we hear the most here with DRM broadcast is Radio Romania. Radio Romania does have quite a few DRM broadcasts throughout the day. It is supposed to be, groundbreaking and give us the clarity of FM on shortwave and all of that. The problem is DRM is very difficult to really pinpoint and hear anything. Your signal needs to be very good. You have to have almost no noise in order for that to decode. And so there's one station that's easier to decode, and I don't even know. I haven't heard anybody hearing that one for a long time. Voice of Nigeria used to be on DRM, and they used a lower bit rate than the others, and that actually helped tremendously. Most people that had a hard time listening to DRM broadcast were able to hear Voice of Nigeria because the lower bit rate meant that the decoding went better. But imagine, it's a digital mode that goes through shortwave. So imagine with the fading and the noise, and it's not. It doesn't work well. I don't find that it does work well. The other thing about it is there's pretty much no radios with DRM. There's like a few radios here and there that appeared that were dreadfully expensive that decoded DRM, but the lack of radios is definitely not helping out. So I find DRM to be more of a nuisance than anything else. It's very wide on the international broadcast bands, so it kind of interferes with everything next to it. it's not been thought out well. DRM should have had its own frequency ranges, first of all. They should have dedicated, well, these are the bands where DRM transmissions will be possible as to not interfere with anything else. I mean, there's a lot of the space in the spectrum of shortwave. They could have found some, definitely uh, some places to put DRM broadcasts. But it's a digital transmission, and once it decodes well, though, you do get very clear reception, no static, nothing, and it's something that unfortunately I don't think we'll ever take on. They're still pushing it. I mean, I don't know who's behind the DRM consortium, but man, they are pushing so hard for stations to have their transmitters they are DRM capable. DRM, Digital Radio Mondiale, is you can decode it with a software called Dream on a PC that is available online for free. You can there's some Kiwi SDRs online that now have the DRM decode capabilities if you want to try it. So you just need to find a DRM broadcast. But not a lot of stations are broadcasting on DRM now. There's a few. There's like I know the BBC has some DRM. The Radio Romania has DRM. China Radio, I think, has a little bit of DRM. Radio New Zealand has some DRM at times, but it's. I'm not against. Somebody told me, "Well, you're against the new technology on the radio." I'm not. I'm not. If it would work well, if there would be radios, and if they would have found, the like dedicated bands for it, oh yes, cool, let's go for it. I got no problem with that. But oh man, it's like just there's nothing, and radios are almost never there. So your Radio France International also does DRM, absolutely. So it's if there'd be I would definitely have one if there would be a $100 or $200 DRM capable receiver. For sure. But nope. And the only ones that I've seen were very expensive. And for something that is kind of hit or miss, and that there's not a lot of broadcasts. The one thing that I could see with DRM is dedicated DRM for local stuff. And in Europe, there are actually some countries that have implemented DRM in the 25 megahertz range. So they want to broadcast DRM, but for local audiences. Now, of course, with high solar activity, it means that DRM might propagate further away. But there are some countries implementing DRM local broadcasts around 25 to 26 megahertz. That might actually work better in terms of reception. Carol, W7WXV has weather broadcasts on radio teletype 8427. Yeah, it must be Navtex transmission with weather, I would guess. Moon Vision, my MLA30 is mounted on a wooden broom pole. You'd think I'd gain much by putting on a plastic. No, wood is perfect. The only thing you don't want to put it on is a metal pole because it's going to totally change its properties. But you won't. I don't think you would gain or have any difference in using a plastic PVC pipe, for example, rather than a wooden broom. I have it. Mine is on a wooden broomstick, so I don't think it would have a difference, honestly. 0-100 DRM first started 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, it's been around for a while now. Never really caught on. Bruce Corbett, it's much more interesting and fun listening to shortwave on the radio. Alan, internet broadcast radio isn't the way forward. Take the conflict in Ukraine, for example. Russia has restricted its use and what is accessed by Russian people. The BBC restarted shortwave. Yeah. In times of crisis, one of the things for sure is that in times of crisis, the internet, is easily blocked. Others out Crafter's Kitchen, even with higher speed internet and wider bandwidth, streaming audio almost always results in buffering, eventual glitches. It is unreliable and not nearly as much fun. Yeah, well, if you've got a good connection, it works well in general, but it's not necessarily, and it's not, everybody that's going to do that, and most of the, a lot of the world has very crappy internet also. So definitely not the best. Hard dot, I bought a USB RTL SDR. It gets pretty hot. Is that the norm for these dongles? I've never had anything from a USB port get hot like that. Definitely the RTL SDR dongles do get very hot. It's normal. Just the way they are. But you know what? Two broke Tim. The big stations did not change to the internet only. They all just removed themselves. Most big stations that left shortwave just left. They have not switched to the internet. That doesn't happen. These broadcasts are dedicated for, a specific audience on shortwave. And when they decide that it's not useful to have shortwave anymore, they're not switching. And Radio Netherlands didn't go on, on the internet. Most of the big stations that have gone are just gone and have no internet. The only ones that do have internet stuff is the bigger government-owned stations that are, news sources, like the BBC. Definitely, they have streaming online, but no, the majority of shortwave stations, when they left, they just left and did not switch for internet, which shows you they don't have a desire to broadcast through the internet. It's not interesting for them. They just have a desire to broadcast, and when they find that either the audience isn't there, or that they don't feel like there should be a reason for them to broadcast, they just go. And one thing that happened to Rogue Tim also, when Radio Prague and Radio Slovakia left shortwave, they kept an online presence. Their broadcasts were available as podcasts. They still are today on the internet. And it's interesting because now they decided to rent airtime on WRMI. And in one of the mailbag shows, they had said, when we left shortwave, we lost our audience. We noticed that nobody was writing anymore and nobody was listening. And that's what made their decision to come through WRMI, which is less costly than having their own transmitters. So nope, there's no switch to the internet. It doesn't happen. It's when they go, they go. And that's it. The only thing that streams on the internet as broadcast is regular standard private stations, stuff like that just broadcast, have both available because it doesn't cost much to be online anyways. But most of the stations, when they left, they just left. What else do we have? What else do we have? Yeah, KPH, which is Saturday only, with CW on the different frequencies that they use. I'm gonna do a little rundown here of KPH. Let's see if we can hear them on some frequencies. Let me just go down. Keegan DXer. I use headphones when reviewing my recordings for FMDX from my iPhone Bluetooth link, and when listening on my YouTube channel. Dave Conte, nice to have you here from the Bronx. VR 108 is much better sound with the headphones plugged in, but on shortwave, the static also goes up significantly on the headphones. Yeah, it could be because your it could be because the the headphones act as an antenna. And so if you have noise around you, that radio picks up the all the noise from the headphone wire. That becomes kind of an antenna. Comexi 1976. Nice to have you on board. Francis Moore, nice to have you here from the UK, vodka free. Skip, nice to have you here from windy New Jersey in 2EI. Like I said, no broadcaster is internet only when they leave shortwave. That's not what they're doing. They're just leaving in general. There's very few broadcasters that have an online presence after they leave shortwave. The ones that do broadcast or do stream on the internet are more like mainstream broadcasters, or like the BBC or Voice of America, Radio France, things like that will anyways have an online presence because of the way they are. Like here, the CBC, you'll have the CBC, but you don't have. It's not the same thing, because you got to remember one thing. Also, is that shortwave dedicated broadcasts are not regular broadcasts. Shortwave dedicated broadcasts, like for example, Radio Romania, are broadcasts that are for a specific audience and done for the specific audience by the station. Radio Canada International is an example. Radio Canada International was a broadcast, they had, at the end they didn't, but for the most part, they had dedicated shortwave audience broadcasts, which were very different from the main CBC. So what you have mostly streaming, and now it's pretty much what's left, is the CBC itself, which is the national broadcaster. And that, for every country, most national broadcasters will have their online presence. But their online presence for the national broadcasters isn't the same thing, because first of all, it's mainly for the local audience, not an international audience for the most part. And also, the other thing is that they'll be in their local language. An example of a lot of stations that the national broadcasters are on the internet, yes, but in their language, they don't have any more dedicated English language or French language, or they'll have only broadcasts for the most part in their native language of whatever country they're broadcasting from, because that's the only focus they have. They don't have a focus for an international audience. So internet streaming is a different beast. It's a different thing. It's not like shortwave broadcasting for a dedicated audience that you go and get. That's very different. We got to be careful with when we talk about shortwave and shortwave broadcasters. Like I said, the dedicated shortwave broadcaster for an audience does not go on the internet when they shut down. They just shut down. And that example is Radio Netherlands, for example. So, you'll have local audience stuff. For example, you'll have Norway national broadcast. The national broadcast from Norway is there. But do you understand Norwegian? Because unlike Radio Norway International, they don't have English. They're in Norwegian. So it's a very different thing. And you're not going to listen to that. So nobody's going to listen to Radio Norway unless you know Norwegian and things like that. So we're dealing with two different things here when we talk about broadcasting via the internet versus shortwave broadcasting. What is it? Oh, really? WTWW has been putting some Ukrainian hit parade top 50 on the playlist. Wow. Chastang, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky. Simon Templar, nice to have you here. Just emailed a picture of the radio and beverage of the day. Let's check that out. I'm going to do a little something here. Open this. Okay. Go. Let's check out the picture. See that. So, image. That's nice. Look at that, guys. Here's the radio and the beverage of the day from our friend here, which is kind of cool. Nice little radio there. That's not bad at all. And a nice Pepsi. I haven't drank Pepsi in such a long time. And I didn't look at the email, by the way, to see if anybody says hello by email. Something that I usually do. So through email, we don't have any check-ins. So no one's saying hello through email today, right now. So welcome aboard, Simon Templar. Miguel, nice to have you here from Spain. Jason V9 JMC with digital, it's either you get it or you don't. Yep. Indeed. Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here. Jeff King, nice to have you on board from Jacksonville, Florida. Listening while at work. Take care, Barry. Stay safe. John Hummel Newell, nice to have you here. What else we have? Carol W7WXV. I think you mentioned in the International Radio Report the other week that there is some people pushing for Radio Australia to come back. Anything new on this? So it's what we talked about on the International Radio Report was that the Labour Party in Australia, so it's like it's kind of an election thing, are saying that if they get the power, that they would add $8 million to help put Radio Australia back on shortwave. Now, the problem with that, and this is the big problem, the transmitter sites for Radio Australia have pretty much all been turned down now. So what could they do with 8 million? I think they're just gonna, because there's a few shortwave transmitters less that were for like the Northern Territory service and stuff like that for Australia. They probably could reactivate those, but at $8 million, I don't think they're gonna rebuild the Shepparton transmitter sites and stuff like that. These would cost a lot more money than that to actually reactivate anything Radio Australia. Also, it's a government kind of election promise. How far is it in the list of priorities? And as we all know, governments promise a lot of stuff, but once they get to power, those promises often go away and are not, nothing's done. So as long as the actual government here that they have right now is in place, nothing's happening. That government is completely opposed to reactivating any shortwave out of Australia. So this is something that's not going to change for now. And like I said, even if the other party, the Labour Party, gets into power, up to what point would that really happen is, anybody's guess. But for now, it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. But we have that happening from time to time when there's some party or there's some people that are saying, well, we want to have Radio Australia back, and so on. One of the things that the main government also says is that Radio Australia does have a certain presence throughout the Pacific Islands, because they do have some FM outlets on some of the Pacific Islands, a little bit like the BBC does. BBC has shortwave, but if you look in Africa, for example, they have a lot of FM stations broadcasting the BBC for local communities and in the big cities, for example. Even here in North America, if you have an HD radio, a lot of the national public radio stations have a BBC stream. That's what I listen to. I listen to the BBC World Service through that WVPS in Burlington, Vermont, here on 107.9, which I love. Having my little HD radio for that enables me to listen to the BBC. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but a lot of talk, maybe not much more happening. We'll see. It'd definitely be great if they would come back, but Our JDA Dakota, but the receivers have to be available for DRM format, and it's no good for the consumer and a reasonable price like the D808. Yep, absolutely. F1 Sushi, nice to have you here from Ottawa. Mad Max says MLA30 is on one of those metal adjustable curtain rods. I just have an insulator to keep the loop from touching the metal. Yep, Justin, you can say that a DRM is the HD radio of shortwave. Yep, pretty much. In a simple explanation, yep, that's exactly it. TFB Taloa Fishing, K5ASL, nice to have you on board. Enjoy the readings about shortwave. I really feel we need shortwave now more than ever to help spread the news for Europe and Asia. Yep. There's definitely a need for shortwave. There's definitely an awareness of the importance. If you guys want to have and hear the discussion, I invite all of you, by the way, to listen to the International Radio Report show tomorrow. The International Radio Report show we'll have a special discussion. We'll be talking about, of course, what sparked a discussion and kind of a little debate, which was the article by Daniel Robinson and Keith Perron about shortwave revival not being a thing, is wishful thinking. Now, they did modify the article a few days later, removing some of the numbers they had put there, which were totally bogus, honestly. So we are looking at that, looking at some of the responses. Also, there's a lot of responses on that article. And we are giving our opinion and our own take on it. Daniel Robinson offered to be there, but we kind of agreed, me and Sheldon, that it was not necessary for now to have him on the show, because he had his, he had his voice. He had his take. It's not a, he says it's a one-sided conversation we're having, which I don't agree, because he had his one-sided conversation, that article. And so now we have our viewpoints of it, and which is not a one-sided conversation. It's reacting to what already was said. There's no shortwave revival. With that we agree upon. There's no shortwave revival. We cannot use what's happening right now, the adding of shortwave broadcasts from different stations, because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And the what I think is happening is we're having an awareness that shortwave is important, because they added broadcasts. Many stations added some broadcasts towards Ukraine, Russia. So obviously, a lot of stations, including the BBC, understands that, yeah, it's important to broadcast. Even Ukraine, reactivating their AM medium wave stations that were shut off in 2017. Is showing that radio is important now that there's a conflict, especially with Western media and news being blocked off the internet in those regions. So what is happening here is that we've got a way with shortwave to communicate with these people, and I think that is what's happening right now is really a um, an awareness that it is very, very important to maintain and keep the possibilities of always wanting to broadcast to some countries if needed. My take on the future of shortwave is that shortwave will be here in 100 years, definitely. What's going to happen with shortwave is that there's not going to be a desire to necessarily have your own shortwave transmitter. That's the past. Um, Yeah, we used to have shortwave stations from specific areas, in countries, and yeah, that was kind of cool. And I get all people. I got someone that says I left the hobby because I don't see the fun in having Radio Prague from WRMI. I wanted to have Radio Prague from the Czech Republic. Well, that's the DXer point of view, the one that wants to have signals coming from the original country. But there's a lot of program listeners, and for program listeners, having relays like WRMI is great because it even often makes the signal even better and even easier to hear. And I think that's going to be the future. We're going to have a future where around the world, we're going to have a handful of powerful shortwave transmitters from different places, well placed transmitters. And um, there will be a with that there will be it- different broadcasters that will be renting airtime, and I think that is the future of shortwave. I mean, it's much less expensive, like Radio Prague and Radio Slovakia. It probably cost them really not a lot of money compared to when they have their own transmitter site to maintain. And so these stations, it's a lot less expensive, and they stay on the air. And I think the future will be that. Many transmitter sites around the world handling a lot of relays from broadcasters that want to be there. And at the same time, it's going to maintain a possibility of, oh, there's a conflict here. We can add broadcasts over that transmitter site and send them to the affected area. So, there are countries that have not dismantled their transmitter sites, even though their broadcasts are not there anymore. Bulgaria, the Radio Bulgaria transmitter site is it's still capable of running. And actually, some stations, there are some airtime being rented for some stations. Austria is another one. Austria has only a very minor role now with Radio Austria still existing, but only in German. But the Austrian Moosbrunn transmitter site is rented by many broadcasters, and that's going to be the future. We're going to have stations renting airtime over different broadcasters, and it's going to cost less money for them. And we'll still have shortwave broadcast there, still going to be there. Shortwave is necessary when something happens like what's happening in Ukraine. Um, but it's interesting because the article that we're going to talk about tomorrow kind of says that there no one's listening to shortwave. Why are we doing this? And this is, I don't, I think, and it's based on nothing. It's not. There's no facts. There's no, and I use numbers. I use a little bit of numbers that come from the different things that I see. For example, did you guys know that Texan actually makes Texan makes um, the 5 million. What the hell did I just see? Texan makes 5 million radios a year. This is according to the Texan Australia about page. They make 5 million radios a year. Somebody's buying radios. I mean, if you make 5 million units, come on. Some people are buying radios. And I think a lot of people, WRMI on their own website has a lot of interesting facts, including the fact that a lot of people in Europe that own radios, their radios, a lot of them are shortwave capable. So they might not be listening to shortwave in everyday life. They might be listening just to the medium wave band or the FM band. But according to some of the stats that they have at WRMI, a lot of the radios across Europe are shortwave capable. So that means, it must be true to Ukraine and to Russia. Russia, one of the things they were talking about is how Russia doesn't have, there's nobody listening to shortwave in Russia. I don't think so. And you know what? One of the things you got to be careful also is, in times of conflict, do you want to tell everybody you've got a shortwave radio? You might keep that to yourself. You're in your home, nobody knows, and you can listen to the outside world, have some news, and have some good news maybe, rather than the news that your own broadcast, your own your own listening. I just got distracted. Sorry, guys. 13730. 13730. Oh, look at that. Strong. Radio Andorra Revival booming in right now from Austria. 13730. Wow. What a song in French. Pretty cool. Definitely a very strong signal from Radio Andorra Revival 13730. Francis Moore, I want to attach a long wire to the brickwork of the house vertically. Will this be a problem, or should I let it hang free from the plastic gutter? I would let it hang. Actually, the closer to the house it is, the more noise it might pick up. So you could just let it hang. Don't have to necessarily, if it's more somewhere where it's not a problem, just let it hang. That's all. Bruce Corbett, Sunday they might regret shutting down their own shortwave stations. Yep. So, anyways, International Radio Report. Our discussion will be there tomorrow, and we have the International Radio Report YouTube channel. So, youtube.com/International Radio Report, where you can subscribe. We have the show on the YouTube channel about an hour after the show is played on CKUT. Frank Ireland, nice to have you here from Venice, Florida. Harold Anderson, Radio Caroline is now on the internet, but they were an AM station on medium wave in the old days. Moon Vision. No, I haven't. I haven't had the time to think about it at all. But I need to try it out. DSD Plus, definitely. But I have to find some time to do stuff. I have so much things going on at the same time that it's difficult to find just a little bit of time to relax. But I definitely need to try that for sure. Current IT guy. Does anyone else see a strong 24/7 Kodar signal next to WTWW 5085 evening music frequency? I don't have Kodar on 5085, but let's see here if I see anything right now. Um, right now, here I have no signals at all around that frequency range, but I don't usually have any problems. So I don't know. Maybe it could be where you're located. You're closer to a Codar signal to or some Codar. Scott KC2C80. Relaying on any pay service never is a good idea. Over the air is always the way to go. Yep. And don't forget one thing: you're anonymous. A radio makes you anonymous. On the internet, you're not. You can be tracked down. But on the radio, nobody knows. Nobody knows you're there. Maybe why spy number stations still exist today. Carl Icon, WTWW 9940, booming with music into New York. RJ Dakota, I'm trying something new, something called Radio Garden. Yeah, Radio Garden is nice. It does have some of the better shortwave radio stations. It has a tremendous amount of medium wave from everywhere. Yeah, Radio Garden has pretty much all the streams of everything you can basically stream for the most part. And you'll get the bigger stations like the BBC and stuff like that also. Vinay Fundakar. Was thinking to get an Ethon Elite 750, but I still got PL990. You think it's a good idea to buy one? Everybody that has one is happy with it from what I see. The only thing about the Ethon Elite 750 is that the filters are very wide. So in where stations could be very close to each other, it could be a problem. But overall, I don't know of anybody that has one that doesn't like their 750. Larry N2ICZ, are the tropical bands still active? I haven't checked them out in a while. Well, it's quieter than it used to be, that's for sure, but there's still some stuff. The tropical band, especially a 60-meter tropical band. Got a few Brazilians, you got a couple of Cubans, you've got a couple from South America that are weak, but they're La Montana, Colombia. From Colombia, there's quite a few. There's one from Peru that's been reported in the last couple of weeks. There are quite a few stations reported. But it's not like the big gun 60-meter band that we used to know. Most of the stations on the tropical bands are now very small and very weak stations. Actually, if you use a Kiwi SDR in Central or South America, you'll notice that there's quite a few signals scattered all around there. But it's mostly stations that have like a couple of 100 watts, and that's it. Somebody was asking me the other day about Radio Verdad. Unfortunately, Radio Verdad has been off the air on 4055 for a while now. And I think it's because they had some transmitter issues. That's the biggest killer of shortwave stations, especially in the tropical band. Transmitter problems, and they just have no money to fix it. So they just disappear. But it's worth going through the tropical band. It's surprising what you can get from time to time. Eric Cottrell, I tend to have a Sprite occasionally. Yeah, I got some Diet 7-Up, which is kind of like Sprite, basically. Zen Pharaohs, I finally figured out that the local HD radio station is now repeated on FM, so I listened a bit. And there is no need for me to get an HD radio to listen to that. Yeah, that's the big trick that a lot of stations are actually doing. Here in Montreal, the AM stations that are HD through an FM station. So CJAD 800 or that sports station on 690, they are both HD, but they're HD on 107.3. So you have to go on 107.3 and then switch to the stream of HD2 or HD3 for either sports or CJAD. And that's the catch. A lot of AM stations don't want to be on HD on their AM signal. They're using an FM outlet from a sister station. So Farrell, strange to find out the Sony ICF 7600JR was way better, way better at FM than the PL330. I would have thought most modern radios were all about equally good on FM on their original whips. The biggest problems of the radios for FM and trying to get good FM is the overload. If the FM stations where you are tend to be quite strong, it gets down to how the radio's FM has been designed. So they're not all equal. Here, if I take all the radios that I have, including the text and receivers, it's a very mixed bag of results. Especially here with the very powerful FM stations all around me. The radio needs to be darn good in order to perform on FM here. And so there are a few models that I have that actually do it really well, but there are some that are almost deaf on weak FM stations because the strong FM stations around it are kind of killing the radio itself a little bit. So definitely all radios are not made equal. And even among the Texan brand, if you look at 7 or 8 different Texan receivers, you'll see a difference. And it all has to do with the design. Current IT guy, have pretty much revamped the whole listening shack, moved the SDR over to a modified Chrome box running Windows, and networked it. Actually, listen on the MSI laptop. MLA is the last piece. Nice to have you here, LW Appleby. There's also that, like PLF Radio says, the longer antenna of the 7600 could also play totally in favor. That definitely is true. But like I said, there's a lot of differences also depending on how strong stations are on the FM band around you. Jeff King, I found that a lot of the countries that stream RNO radio stations, like France 24, is actually their TV news channel. Yeah, there's a lot of audio of news channel. Absolutely. Ron Sear, nice to have you here. LW Appleby, deep space signals. Well, you can listen to Jupiter around 20, 21, 22, 23 megahertz. ManMax 2069 finally bought some nickel metal hydride batteries to put in my Ethon Elite Executive, and I should have done that a long time ago. It lasts so much longer with rechargeable batteries than standard AA's. Yeah, all my radios are filled up with rechargeables. So like that, I don't have to, think about it. Dimitri, 9265 is WINB in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. They have religious broadcasting on that. RJD Dakota, BBC stream is taken off, local NPR affiliate here. Yeah, because, it costs them money. It's not free to stream the BBC. You have to pay to the BBC a fee. And actually what they do is they have when they do their fundraising stuff, they often say, well, it keeps the BBC on and so on. So if the station has a hard time with getting donations and getting cash, that's one of the things that's going to go. And especially HD, because HD, not a lot of people actually have an HD radio. I actually did a donation to the WVPS station for that. I actually expressly said, thank you for your HD BBC stream. This is why I'm giving you this money to keep that alive, along with, of course, their regular programming. And actually here, this is so funny because the WVPS station out of Burlington, Vermont knows it has a big audience here in Montreal. And what happens is that they is that they when they do the fundraising, they actually talk to us here in Montreal and saying, "Hey, if you're from Montreal and you're one of those listeners, why not give us a donation to keep the station up and alive?" It's surprising the amount of people listening to WGPS out of Burlington on 107.9 here in Montreal. It comes in very well here in Montreal. Chastang between critters in the attic and storm damage, back using a whip antenna for a while. Hope things get better. Here, my Texan PL 330 is my main for now with the MLA 30 plus. Cool. PLF radio, the Ethon you showed is like the Texan S2000. Yeah, it is. It's the Ethon 750 is made by Texan. It is the Texan S2000. Something like that. Let me just verify here again, because I don't want to say things that are not. So Texan S, because the Ethon Texan S2000. Yeah, that's it. So they're the same radio. There's apparently one small difference between them. One has an IF out in the back, and the other doesn't. I don't remember which one has it, and the other one and the one that doesn't have it. But that is useful if you would like to tap and try to make a DRM receive out of the radio. But Ethon 750 is made by Texan. It's a Texan S2000, pretty much. Ricardo, nice to have you here from Portugal. Says shortwave radio still maintains its strategic power. Yep. Keegan DXer heard the BBC World Service on NPR stations on different stations in Kansas, Missouri. Skipwave DX, nice to have you on board. Jean-Marc Letz, nice to have you here from Strasbourg en France. J'espère que ça va bien. First live show watching on YouTube since the Zoom meeting. Rarely active on the 20 SDR. Too busy elsewhere. Liked comment on scanner for Rhine Valley Airband. What else do we have? Mad Max 2069 bought a unit in 25 to 800 analog scanner while it might not be able to pick up police, fire, emergency as they all trunked. But I will be able to pick up everything else that falls within its frequency. Yeah, well, it's not the trunking that prevents you from listening, because trunking is just a switching of frequencies. If you punch in the frequencies of a trunked service on an analog, you can still scan just the trunk channels and follow the conversation. It's just a little more less it's a little more difficult than having the trunk scanner do it. It's really mostly the digital modes, the P25 and the encryption and all of that will prevent you on an analog scanner, because trunked is not, it doesn't prevent you. Trunked is just frequency hopping, basically. So you just, in an analog scanner, you just punch in all the frequencies of the trunked service and just scan through them, and you can often easily follow a conversation. It's really just the digital modes that's making it difficult. Alan M. Shortwave still a vital role to play in times of conflicts or disasters to get important news and updates. Yep. Christian Marcoux, do you and Sheldon tape shows early Sunday morning? No, we record on a Friday afternoon. So every Friday afternoon, we get on Skype and we do the recording. And then after it's over, I edit the show to remove all the things that went wrong, all the little blooper moments, all the things, sometimes, like for example, tomorrow's show is a difficult edit because we went like 35 minutes. So it's listening to see where we can, I can clip off something, or, sometimes we'll kind of pretty much repeat the same thing a couple of times. So it's like, okay, we can remove this because We already mentioned that earlier, or stuff like that. But what we do is we do it on. It takes we do the recording. We're usually on Skype almost 2 hours every time. And we then after that, when it's over, I start editing, and that takes anywhere from, depending on the show, anywhere from about an hour to an hour and a half doing the edit of the program, and I upload it to the CKUT computer, where I got an access with a password. So I go on, and there you go. I go on the schedule. It's looks like a calendar. You go on to the date, and on that date, you see the name of the show, International Radio Report. I just click on it, and I upload the MP3 to the computer for that time slot. So the show is now uploaded, ready to be played tomorrow morning at 10:30. But we do it on Friday. What is nice about doing the show and uploading it myself is that um, if there would be a last minute change that would be important to make, we can actually do that. So if there would be some last minute thing to add today, I could, you know, we could do it, edit the show again, and I could re-upload the show, and it'll be played for tomorrow. So we have some flexibility if there are some last minute things that could happen. It happened once that we had a late breaking news, and that I actually changed the show a little bit and uploaded the new version. Mad Reader DXer, I say, have you here? Take care, my friend. Robert Osborne, if there's no value in shortwave, why is China so big in shortwave radio? They think it has value for some reason, and yeah, and all the um, the jamming. They spend a lot of money jamming everybody. RJ Dakota, I do understand the program listening. I enjoy Radio Prague international programs. Also respect the DXer. I remember listening to commercial service stations from South Africa and truly enjoyed listening. It's I understand the fun of listening to a country from the country of origin, but Alan, I think the BBC was using shortwave transmitters in Germany to broadcast to Russia and Ukraine. No, they're using their own transmitters on Wooferton for the broadcast. They're actually broadcasting from Wooferton, UK. Dimitri, but they might be using other broadcasts, definitely also. Other broadcast relays. Dimitri 9455, some cool stores people are sharing. Nikki Dalmage radio and Dora Revival booming in on 13730. Yep, was coming in really clear. Simon Templar, if I lived there, I wouldn't let people know I have a radio of any kind. Would listen, but would do it covertly. Yeah, pretty much. And I think a lot of people are like that. They keep it to themselves, basically. JD Dakota says, don't assume that they don't have shortwave radio. Russia used to build a lot of Selena Vega radios. Carol, W7WXV, I might not want to tell anyone I have a radio, but I can't hide my 270 feet wire antenna. But, in a country like that and in times like this, you would probably take down that antenna and try to have some little antenna that nobody really knows it's there. Harry Olden, supposed to be in the third quarter of this year, but it's been 2 years. They've been telling us it's going to be ready. It's going to be ready. It's going to be ready. It never comes out. We'll see. But that's $699 price tag. Yeah, I don't think so. Brian Penny, nice to have you here from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Just got home attending the opera. Oh, wow. else do we have? Philip, Radio Austria. Thanks for the tip. Yep, Radio Austria is still on, but it's just German broadcast. Bobby Burgess, is there a way to access the Nation Radio Registry from Library of Congress online? Anybody knows that? Well, in Russia, especially as their government has banned all negative news regarding the conflict. So absolutely. Shelley has 13730 from South Central Pennsylvania. George, nice to have you here from Mexico. Gary 24 fan, nice to have you on board. And we have Zen Faros 13730 is French. Khalid Wave, nice to have you here, Khalid. Let me check it out. I am talking about something like that. The Ethon Elite satellite that is supposed to come out at some point. So we're gonna see what that. It's kind of an updated version of what was already out in the past. Just we're gonna see how it goes. A lot of people complaining that the original display on those are fading out after a couple of years, and it seems that nobody's up to fix them. Rancia, for Ham It Up Nano and Ham It Up Plus, is there a big difference? I don't know if there's really much of a difference. I haven't looked at the Ham It Up stuff in a while. I don't know if anybody can answer that question here. Take care, Vinay. Tim Mitchell from Wisconsin. Forgive my ignorance, but when a broadcaster uses a transmitter such as a warning, how do they get the content or program to the transmitter site? There used to be a day where all of that was done by satellite. So sometimes you could hear the satellite switching in the audio before the show started or ended. But a lot of it is done via internet today. So they'll either have a direct stream of the station, or some stations require you to upload your show in some way. It's like if you want to be on WRMI, you could be live, so there could be a direct connection, but you can also have your own show and upload it as an MP3 file to their computers, and for the airtime that you're going to play it when it is supposed to be playing. But a lot of it is done by internet today. But in the past, before the internet was really much of a thing, most relays were done using satellites. So slowly, when the streaming capabilities worked and when the internet started being a thing, they pretty much all of them switched to internet. John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Zinfaro says, what you say about sister outlets is true, but it goes the other way around in this case. It's a dedicated HD on medium wave, and the FM relay is analog audio. Interesting. WRMI, yeah, okay. So WRMI it's two things. It's WRMI is it's either directly streamed, like for example when that guy in Alaska made his live show. He was doing it via the stream direct to the station, so they were able to punch into that stream. But a lot of the shows on WRMI are also simply uploaded to WRMI's computers for airtime. So stations like the Radio Prague, Radio Slovakia, they probably upload their podcasts to WRMI to be ready to play at the different times. Arthur's Alicraft's Kitchen, the Radio Enduro Revival transmitter is Austria. It's the Moosbrunn Austria relay. The station was very, very strong indeed. Tom DXer, Radio Enduro Revival, strong on the Sony ICF 2010 telescopic. J Dakota, small station here on 1220 is always music. Broadcasts also on FM, but the FM seems to be a lesser consideration. Francis Moore, a good discrete antenna for a Yaesu FT818 went on the Malvern Hills, UK for QSL. RJ Dakota says, and even after all this time, and most people I know still had never heard of HD radio. You know, I listened to an 80s show on one of the local FM stations here in the Friday nights. It is an HD radio station. They are on HD. And they have HD2, which has country music station. It's 24 hours country music. And they never mention it. I have never, ever heard them in any announcements on the radio say, oh, we're in HD. And we've got country music on HD too. It's so weird that you have HD capable and are running it, and you're just not telling anyone. Why don't you advertise you have HD? And at the same time, you will actually have people learn that, oh, there's such a thing as an HD radio that exists out there, you know? TV Ostrowski, 13730 coming in strong in Southeast Alberta. So that's the Radio Andorra Revival, that show. And it comes from Austria. It's a special show. And Dulles Bernstein's, the radios with direct conversion front ends, SDR, get swamped by strong local stations compared with superhead front end. This is why cheap radios don't perform so well. A lot of the radios today are actually not that bad, and can really work well with a lot of with strong signals. Mark Drager, nice to have you here. WWV, strong into Southeast Wisconsin. George has 13730 also in Mexico on the PL 880. Yeah, that's the thing, is they're down P20 P25. So that's why you can't listen. Mark Drager has 25 megahertz WWV strong. Let me try it here. See if I can hear WWV on 25 megahertz. No peep of a signal here. 25 megahertz is dead. 20 meters alive and kicking, says Trustin in Newfoundland. Chastak, I will have to watch a repeat. Take care, my friend. Stay safe. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you here from Greenfield Park. What else do we have? Jeff King, battery bad dead. Stay safe. Take care, my friend. Dwayne, WPE9CZE, nice to have you here. Christian Maku, thank you for the thorough explanation of the show. Yep, we and Andorra from Austria is pretty cool. Yeah, definitely is. Definitely is. Really nice. I didn't even know that they were actually doing that. Really good signal. Amazing. Well, on that SDR, on the SDR, there's this big fat signal on from about 13,660 all the way up to 13,700. Some kind of radar signal, I don't know. Skipwave DX used the old metal mattress antenna. Ron Sear uses the clothesline. Yeah, that's a good way to not, have anybody know that you're actually listening to shortwave. Sheldon can sing around, but just wanted to stop to say hello, everyone, and hope that everyone will be listening to the show tomorrow. Yep. And there's also Zoom meeting registration for a discussion that will be very, very nice. They're going to be posted on the Facebook group. So this month's CIDX Zoom is open to everybody, not just CIDX members. And we hope to have a discussion on shortwave broadcasting and follow-up discussion basically on what we'll talk in the International Radio Report tomorrow, by the way. Let me check it out here. Their current IT guy. TVDXer, salut, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien. Nice to have you on board. Philip, is HD the same as DAB? It's different. DAB, digital audio broadcasting, has its own frequency range. And it's a dedicated, range for just digital broadcasting. Where it is kind of the same is that it's, of course, digital broadcasting for better audio and all sorts of other information that could be also sent through the stream. In North America, HD radio uses a different method. It's embedded within the actual broadcast signal. So, for example, an FM station is on analog, but within that FM signal, analog signal, is a data stream that's been put there also. So if you have an analog radio, you can still listen. But if you have an HD radio, the HD radio is going to lock on the HD. And then it's going to actually give you the audio coming out of that data stream. The disadvantage is that the data stream is much smaller than DAB, meaning there's less place for high quality audio and information. But the good thing, and that's what I like about HD radio, is that it actually gives you the possibility, like on DAB, if your signal gets bad, you just lose the station. It goes from, it's there or not. Where on HD radio, because the analog is still there, when your radio, for some reason, the HD signal gets too weak, if it unlocks, it defaults to analog. So you don't miss out on the program at all. You'll just notice a difference on audio quality, but you won't miss out on the program. So that's the difference between the DAB used in a lot of European countries and HD radio, which is pretty much a North American thing. What's cool about HD radio on AM is I haven't done a scan in a long time, but there's 3 or 4 stations on AM medium wave that actually are capable, when the signal's strong enough, of triggering the HD on my portable HD receiver. And when that happens, you hear the switching between the standard analog into crystal clear HD audio for, maybe 20, 30 seconds. And then when the signal fades back down and you lose the lock, then it comes back to the analog. And you see a huge difference in audio quality there. It's kind of nice. I like the HD radio. The way that it's done for that reason is that you never miss out. So if the signal gets too weak, you still rely and still hear the analog. So you don't miss on anything in the program. Where, in DAB, if the signal gets too weak, you just lose the station. It just, there's no more decoding. But there are different systems. But both trying to give us, HD. I've heard of talks of possible DAB in North America, taking a frequency range and doing it. There are a few stations in North America that are HD only on their medium wave frequency. That one is just digital. So if in the case of those few stations that are totally HD only, then in that case there would be, when the signal fades out, there's no fallback. And the thing is that HD radio is meant to be eventually replacing the station's analog for a lot of stations. And that never really happened. Nobody has an HD radio. I don't, I know I have one. A few of you have one. I have no. I mean, ask anyone about HD radio, they're all going to look at you and stare, and it's like, what's HD radio? Most people have no idea it exists. John Beckham, 13730, coming in into Northeast Florida on the Ceodon R108 on telescopic. Keegan DXer, my local NPR station, KUAF. Fayetteville, Arkansas on 91.3 has mentioned their HD1, HD2, and HD3. The NPR stations do. I recall listening to WVPS and their mentioning of their of the HD possibility. Zen Pharaohs just mixed myself a pseudo Stinger mint julep placeholder, 1 ounce Hudson Valley Distilleries Applejack, 1 ounce Giffard's Pastille de Monte. Crushed ice. We'll soon listen to the Derby. Cool. Marty boy, nice to have you here from Scotland. Spain coming in on 17855 says John Beckham coming in Northeast Florida. J. Dakota says only one station in my area ever promoted an HD2 signal, KSHE 94.7, as an 80s music channel. Yeah, well, you have to have a clothesline that looks like a clothesline, Maybe put a couple of pair of jeans on it just to make sure. Cab Destre, nice to have you on board. And what else do we have? James Binder, nice to have you here. Dimitri, 14205 USB Audible. Richard Califano, had you on my phone while I took down the Christmas lights. Finally warm enough to do it. We'll be going back up in 7 months. It's crazy. Time is flying. I just can't believe we're in May. Crazy. Keegan DXer, 91.3 KUAF HD1 repeats the regular NPR. HD2 is around the clock classical music, which is what we have here also. HD3 is Jazzworks. Interesting. So, here the WVPS will have the main NPR. Then you'll have the classical music in HD2. And you have BBC. Here is the BBC stream on HD3. Zen Pharaohs, HDS full digital mode, which the local signal uses of WFAS 1230. Yeah, that one has no analog fallback, so no analog in this case. And it probably gives them better audio, I would guess, because if you can just use the full bandwidth of the HD signal, you probably get it probably lets them push a better better audio quality and that data stream than if it would be embedded within that HD signal, that analog signal. Sorry. Tony Magnier, nice to have you here from Ireland. DAB was a failure in Ireland due to the lack of interest from the commercial sector and lack of government willingness to encourage adoption, which digital will eventually be standard. All the countries where the digital works is it's very simple. All the countries where digital works is countries that had a deadline. So what they did is they pushed digital. They tell stations you got to be digital by this date, and then they tell them you got to switch off the analog at this date. So stations, it's like countries like Norway, for example, did that. They just pushed a cutoff date and said, look, if you want to listen to the radio station, buy an HD capable radio, and those countries have an audience for it because they were forced to do it. A little bit like the transition to HD television. They just gave a cutoff date and said, look, after this date, your good old analog TV is not going to work anymore. You need to have an HD TV set, or at least an HD set-top box for your old TV. Every country that doesn't push it doesn't take on. Here in North America, HD radio is on the decline. HD radio has been on for quite a long time in North America also. And what happens is that over time, there are less and less stations on HD. And even since I've owned my Sangean HDR14, when I scan medium wave, when I got the radio, I used the radio used to stop on 7 different frequencies on medium wave at night from the US, because it detected that there was some HD stream there. And from that time that I purchased it until today, now it stops on, I think, only 3. The other ones just shut down their HD signal and they just kept analog. So, Richard has Radio Romania 7310, poor reception in upstate New York. Philip, just tune in a few strong shortwave channels on the AN 200 loop by mistake. That's for medium wave, right? The AN 200 is made for medium wave. I mean, on strong signals, obviously it can probably work somewhat, but it's made for medium wave. It's really tuned only for the medium wave band. DVD Extra HD radio is the stations in between the stations. Turkey 9830, great reception. Anything else? I'm pretty much down the list now. Catched up with everybody. Yes, sir. Clothes hangers can make good HF antennas. The metal ones, I don't know how well that could work. But when I moved here, we had a clothesline, which was the metal kind of clothesline, because you got to be, some of them are made of kind of a rope kind of thing, or some are a synthetic plastic type. Here we had, of course, I have a washer and dryer, and I never put my clothes out on a clothesline. So when I moved here, I was using the clothesline as an antenna for a while, instead of putting up. It stopped when the clothesline snapped, because over time it gets more and more corroded. And one day, clothesline was in the backyard, and then never been replaced, because I don't use it anyways. So I've never been replaced. David in Barcelona, ¿cómo está mi amigo? Desde España. Nice to have you here. EA3IEK, EA4998URE. Keegan DXer, happy with his HDR14 after watching my review. It's a good little HD radio. Honestly, it's a good receiver. It's a small portable. It's not big, but it definitely is a good radio. The only negative, but I use rechargeable batteries, so it's okay. It does draw a lot of power from the batteries. I don't know if it's because of the HD circuitry in it or the chip. Batteries, AA batteries, don't last that long in that radio. I have to replace them quite often. And I'm surprised at how high current drain it does. But since I use rechargeables, it's all right because, just recharge the batteries. It's okay. What else do we have? Bobby Burgess. Take alert. Xbox can't even catch a break after outage yesterday. Goes on and off after the Todd did fix it. Oh, man. GA Dakota, we already have a new TV format here, a TSC3 or next gen TV. You probably need a converter box for that. Yeah, they're talking about moving ahead with those new digital tuners. I mean, I'm not going to change my TV because of that. I can tell you that. Tony, thanks, Jill. Yes, the government here were much stricter on deadlines for HDTV, but lacked the impetus to do the same thing. Not good for stations to rely on telcos to deliver their content, I think. Yeah, here nobody's pushing for a cutoff date. So HD isn't catching on. It's not working. And pretty much any country that I think is not pushing it by just switching it off are not very, very successful. I mean, definitely there's an advantage. There's a better audio quality. There's the information stream. You can have all sorts of things displayed on the display of the radio and so on. But for the average person that owns a radio, in their head, it's like, why should I buy a new radio for that? I cannot see the average person saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to change my radio for an HD radio. No, because they get what they want and they listen to it and it's fine. There's an improved audio, but for the most part, people are like, that's fine. I listened. Why should I change my radio? So it doesn't catch on. Nobody wants to just buy a radio to buy a radio. Dimitri, have the HD tuner at workplace. It's getting signals in digital, but if we had bad weather, then digital signals start degrading. TVDXer, Sangean HD T20 does a good job for me connected to an AV receiver. Cool. Ron C, boy, I started something. I was metal with plastic coating and was used for passive use. Alan, my neighbor used earth wire for a washing line. I was so tempted to attach a 4-1 balun to it. John Beckham, CHU 14670, coming into Northeast Florida. Carl Icon has Voice of Turkey 9830. GA Dakota, why should I do that? My eyes aren't getting any better. When you start getting, like our HD TVs today, if you get a real cool, beautiful HD signal on that TV, I think for most people that's enough. And I can actually I bet you that if you put regular people in front of a TV, a 4K TV, and a regular HD, a really a 1080p HD, and ask them if they see a difference, I can bet you most people are going to say what's the difference, you know? And they have ways of fooling you into thinking one TV has a better image than another. I mean, not that it's not true. Definitely, there are TVs that have better images than others, but most average TV are all pretty much the same in general. But they play with the colors and they play with the way that they're going to do stuff. You know, stores when they sell stuff, sometimes some people just don't know how to sell. There was a store here in the shopping center near where I live that's shutting down that sold a few um, HD TVs. They had a cheap, like one of the cheap models, like a Sharp something that was, one of the models that was actually known to be, a cheap brand with a low price on it. They had a Panasonic, the original Panasonic HD TVs that were highly rated as some of the best. And the funny thing is that they put a um they put a analog DVDs movie on the Panasonic, not even in HD. It was like a standard DVD. So it was not a Blu-ray or anything like that. They had they had the cheap TV, which was like half the price, on a real good HD outlet, playing also some demo or something. People would go in and look at it, and it's like, oh, look at that TV, is so beautiful. Do you see that one is so crappy? But the reality was the one that was scrappy is because this type of signal that they put to it. That crappy TV was actually way better than the Sharp one that was next to it. But it's, it's just nonsense. It's like I remember I looked at one of the seller, the guys, there was the salesman there, and I said, if you want to sell that TV one day, you better put an HD signal on it because it looks crappy and it shouldn't. And it's so funny because it stayed like that for a long time. And I don't know if it's because a representative of Panasonic went there and looked at it, but one day they put chairs and even put a little popcorn machine for free popcorn. And that Panasonic TV now was on a wall with a HD movie playing, and now it looked real good. And the way that it was designed, I didn't ask, but I'm pretty sure some representative of the company got there and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. You're not going to put that TV, our TV, look crappy like that. You're gonna actually put that our TV front and center with something good on it." It's just crazy. What else do we have? What else do we have? David, the main TV in my QTH still a Philips CRT hooked up via a SCART to a DVB-T decoder set-top box. George, I was in South Korea a few weeks ago, and a friend of mine told me that most of AM stations are moving to FM. Unfortunately, He couldn't explain why the government or stations took that decision. Yeah, it's one of those decisions where they're like, okay, we're going to do this and we're moving that. And 6RLS, nice to have you on board from Berkeley, California. George, probably the deadline. In fact, I scanned AM with my text and I found 2 or 3 AM stations. Turbo Tim, does the plastic coating around wire interfere with reception? Nope. Nope, does not. And that's why I often will tell you to use, if you put up a wire antenna, just use standard standard wire. Don't use bare wire. The plastic around it will actually help kind of, you know, prolong the life of the wire if you want, without all the rain and the rain, the snow, the sun, and everything interfering or corroding the metal inside it. Tony, the problem with DAB here is that it's just MP2 quality and PEG2 quality, 1 or 2 on low bitrate AAC. Strangely, we have a DAB pirate operator running 23 stations off it. Timothy Exeter, you have to go IN with a 4K to notice, but even then, most people don't see. There was a year or two ago, I remember there was a demonstration done at one of the at a show in the US. They were actually asking people to if they saw which one was 4K, which one was 1080. And it was like a 50-50 thing. It was like, well, must be this one. I think this one looks better. And people just couldn't see the difference at some point. You have to know really what to look for into, because I mean 1080p for most people is probably fine enough. But today they're selling us all those 4K stuff, and even that TV I got there was 4K. It's not an IN TV, but it's fine, and it looks good. No show tomorrow. Next show is going to be Wednesday. Mike WX50, nice to have you here. John Beckham has 11930, Northeast Florida. Oh yeah, definitely. When you go to a store that sells like dozens and dozens of TVs, they play specific videos, and often you'll notice that they'll play specific videos because that's what is going to attract you into noticing, oh, look how beautiful that is. And you're not necessarily buying the best TV if you buy the one that you find the most beautiful. You're simply buying, you're buying a good TV for sure, but you're buying kind of based on what they were able to trick you into thinking that was better than the other one over there. Let's see a first Beatle tune played in Montreal. CJ80 song, please. My WX50, as a younger fellow, I used to think that you had to use bare copper wire for antenna. I guess that's because of the pre-made antennas they used to sell at Radio Shack. Yeah, a lot of them were kind of Glenn, nice to have you here from Northwest Tennessee. Tobruk Tim, how about the flop of AM stereo? Yep. Big promises, AM stereo. And there weren't a lot of radios that actually had AM stereo on them, I can tell you that. I remember when I got my boombox from Radio Shack in the mid 80s, and they were talking about AM stereo. Thinking, well, that could be cool to have, an AM stereo boombox someday. And I mean, that didn't last long. A couple of years later, it was gone. Nobody was, doing AM stereo anymore. I mean, they're trying to push us into stuff, into, you know, promises of really better audio and better quality. And I mean, there were barely any radios available. So that didn't help AM stereo, that's for sure. And I guess at some point they all thought, who cares? Who cares? But yeah, that was a flop. Definitely. I remember, I think there was one radio at the Radio Shack catalog that had AM stereo capability in the day. Francis Moore, a concerned tune into a money pit. I'm wondering if I should have gone for Elecraft KX3. These are really expensive radios. Those that seem to have them seem to be happy. It depends. The money spent on radios and transceivers really depends on many things. How often you're going to use them? What do you want to do with it? Also, and that kind of tells you where do I go high end? Do I go to a more standard radio or transceiver, depending on what you do. RJ Dakota, I knew ahead of time what kind of TV I wanted due to what I studied and read about, as well as saw. Yep. And there's a lot of branding thing. For example, the people will buy based on brand, not necessarily based on what's the best, because some brands for them is just that's the best. It's like Sony TVs. When Sony came out with the Sony Trinitron, and everybody wanted the Sony. Sony was this is the best TV you can have, and I mean they were good TVs. But my uncle, which fixed, TVs and VCRs and stuff. I remember once in the 90s, I had purchased a Sony Trinitron, a 26-inch, and I remember he came and he said, it's a good TV, but it's not what it used to be. There are other models today and other brands that actually have as good, if not better, pictures. Things change over time. Gary 24 fan, still listening to my CDs and records on my nearly 30-year-old stereo system. Sounds great to me. And that's fine. Honestly, I got no problem with that. Alan, have you seen the documentary about the shortwave radio station, Radio South Atlantic, set up by the British Ministry of Defense? No, I didn't. I didn't see that. Where did you see the documentary? Is there a place somewhere I can get it online? David, Sequam AM stereo should have been adopted by shortwave broadcasting stations, at least the big powerful ones. Wouldn't have been a great way to improve the audio fidelity of the signals for music. I wonder how it would have, like, it's on YouTube? Okay. I'm going to check it out. Thanks, Alan. I'm definitely going to check it out. I wonder how, propagation could affect a stereo signal on shortwave. It'd be interesting. My WX50, I'm an audiophile wannabe, but I'm trying not to fall into the money pit chasing better gear entails. I have an LG V60 phone with nice audio output. I think it's not necessary to go to the top higher end. There's some really good in between that will help you save money and and you can use that money to make things better in other ways. I won't buy that one that's 8,000, but I'll buy this one that's 3,000, and with the money saved, I can buy other stuff, better set of speakers or whatever. You know, I'm not fond of the let's buy the top most expensive thing in general. I'm more into there's really good stuff, lower priced, they'll do the job. But then again, it all depends on what you are searching for. I have a friend of mine that has his sound system is like, I think it cost him like $18,000 for the whole thing, and he goes crazy. And I maybe I don't have my ears trained enough, or I don't know, but when I go to his place and he plays music, for me, doesn't sound better than my $1,000 stereo system that I have from the 1990s. But that's me, and that's depends what you want, and maybe how you're trained to listen to stuff. I'm not saying that that doesn't sound better. It probably does, but there's a point where I believe you're maybe kind of overstretching the that's my take on it. Is there's a point where whatever you're going to buy, you're not going to hear the difference. And so I don't know. I don't know. What else do we have? So I'm going to check that documentary out. Absolutely. Speaking of the Falklands War, I enjoyed listening to the differing accounts of BBC and Radio Argentina back then. Argentina made it sound like they were winning in the conflict. Dimitri, if you buy the Granic Satellite 800 receiver, you can connect two speakers and listen to AM stations in stereo. Well, it's not stereo technically, but it's two speakers. Michael, I remember when I was growing up, TV sets were tube, and you had to warm them up, and picture was black and white. Yeah, I remember. I always found that funny because the oldest TV that I can remember that we had in my home was a 26-inch or 27-inch. One of those big wooden frame TVs. It was a color TV that my uncle that actually was repairing TVs. He had that TV given to him. Well, actually, what happened is the TV was sent to him for repair, but the person decided that they didn't want it anymore, and he already had done a repair on it. And so my father looked at the TV and says, "Oh, I want that TV," and so he paid the price that it would have cost for the repair, and brought the TV home. And I remember fiddling. I remember fiddling with the rabbit ears every Saturday morning, so I could get my cartoons off of the stations from the U.S. and Plattsburgh and Burlington, Vermont, and Plattsburgh, New York, that were coming in back then, and watching Bugs Bunny and Scooby Doo and all this stuff that I wanted. And my mom was always telling me, "It's like you're gonna break that TV if you do that." And man, those were tube TVs. You turn it on and it didn't turn on immediately. It took a little bit of time for the tubes to heat up and before the picture appeared. It's like, wow. And then we moved to a smaller 20-inch. It didn't last long. I remember it didn't last very long. We had it maybe a year and a half, and then had to buy a new ones. And I remember we then moved to a 20-inch RCA TV. TVs were dreadfully expensive back then for what they were. I mean, you didn't have 8 TVs. You had one or two in your home, and that's it. Today, the prices they are, you have a TV for every room. David, I'm also a wannabe audiophile myself. Managed to put together a stereo system with turntable, 2 cassette decks, CD deck, mini disc, 8-track, equalizer. With all the latest circumstances, I haven't been so much in the mood to use it, but I'm definitely thinking I'll have to start dusting off and make it work again. Yep. Yeah, FLDG has an update for you guys that are using that to the code. Do check it out. Like WX50, remember watching snowy picture quality on the old tube TVs. Yep. I was always fascinated with the propagation when I was tuning in those stations for my cartoons on the Saturday mornings. And I lived where there was a lot of airplanes passing overhead, and I was fascinated and tried to understand that back then, why is it that when a plane passes, the picture changes? And the picture would come like I remember planes would pass, and every time they would be in a specific area, I remember seeing the picture become crystal clear, almost no snow, and then fade back to the normal picture. And it was like waving. And I was always, back then thought, why is that? What's happening? And it's later on that I kind of learned that actually the signal is reflecting off the plane, and it's actually affecting the propagation and the signal quality. But I didn't know then. I'd never thought that these signals would actually bounce off planes and affect reception that much. Oh man. Dimitri personally prefer shortwave radio to listen, mainly because of news I'm interested in the most. RJ Dakota says, my uncles had a big color TV and the screen was like 30, and he said it was from the middle 50s. The actual thing was huge. Oh yeah, and they were so heavy. So heavy. Darren Rogers, speaking of AM FM stereo receivers, do you or anyone know if Kenwood still makes them, especially the AM FM tuners? They need a separate amplifier with it. I would guess they'd probably still manufacture those stuff. I would guess. I'd go to the Kenwood page and check it out. My brother had a Kenwood stereo amplifier back in the day. Others Out of Crafter's Kitchen says, we were a Sony Trinitron family growing up. I remember my dad said it was the easiest TV he ever worked on when he replaced a circuit board, modular and well designed. Keegan DXer, Zenith Color TV, RC Black and White TV. I still have a Zenith VCR from it's right there looking at me, 1984, 85, when my dad purchased it, and it still works. And and it weighs a ton. It got repaired once by my uncle, and my uncle said these are a pleasure to repair because there's space and they're easy, they're well designed, easy to change things around and fix them. Bobby Burgess, RCA console TV person here, had it in the mid 90s and 2000s, but it went out in 2008. RCA TVs, for some reason, I don't know if we were just unlucky, but every time we had an RCA TV in our home, never lasted. We had a 20-inch RCA that my dad replaced once with some other TV, and it became my TV for my Commodore computer. And I think it lasted from the moment they bought it to the moment it died, I don't think it lasted more than 3 or 4 years. It was like crazy. And we had another one after that, and man, that one didn't last either. I was like, what is that? Are RCA TVs crappy? Yeah, big antenna on the roof for better picture. I remember the neighbor on the other side of the street had that big antenna, and it had a big green ball on top of it. Yeah, it was respected. Kenwood was a respected name in the stereo field. Absolutely. King and DXer did some TV DXing on both sets at different times. Wow. Bobby Virga says we thought we lost that RCA to RC in 2005 when a storm went into the circuits and almost went. Hmm, oh man. Bobby Burgess also had a scene as VCR. Those things are built like things. TV DXer, and like usual, my parents didn't care. I DX'd on it when I was connected, when it was connected. Yeah, well, it was a comment like that, but my mom would not, prevent me from doing it. She was just always kind of saying, "Hey, you're going to break the TV someday." Bobby Burgess. Well, here RCA. You know what, Bobby Burgess here. If you go to Canadian Tire, there's RCA flat screen TVs. It's they have some. John Beckham. Remember the Philco Ford brand of color TVs from the 60s? Oh man, remember seeing them. Yep. Tony, surprise, surprise! From AliExpress, my order of the ATS 100 failed to be even sent out. Never again. You were right about them. They're next to useless for radios, at least. Never buy on AliExpress. I've have too many. I've never purchased from them, and I have too many stories of people buying radios or other things on AliExpress and not getting anything at all, or being scammed in some way. AliExpress is to avoid totally. I actually have a better track record of being careful in buying it off of eBay than AliExpress, from what I see. Take care, Tristan. King and the Xer. My dad had a Sony color TV in early 2000s. Two broke Tim. I had a 9-inch black and white, paid $11 for it new, and had it for 22 years. Not one problem. Wow. RJD Dakota, RCA was a big company, but now obscure. I don't see much from RCA or any other American company anymore. After our RCA went out, we went Panasonic and had that since. Yeah, I always liked Panasonic. Panasonic for me was the brand, the go-to brand. I always thought that Panasonic was higher end electronics than most other brands. Mike WX50, I have a 10-year-old Sony Bravia. Michael says he's got 7 TVs, but mostly listens to the radio. Adrian on 15476 LR836 Archangel San Gabriel shortwave for broadcasting radio on air from Argentina and Antarctica. So I've heard that station very, 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 very faint, possibly a long time ago here, but of the only time I can hear or listen to them is to use QESDRs in South America. Keegan DX has got a Panasonic Color Pilot CT3012 color TV from the early 80s since July 2020. Yeah, some of them are not bad at all. That's for sure. Maybe not the Panasonic RFB 300, but there are definitely some really nice things. John Beckham, it seems that Samsung is the main. Yeah, well, I got a 70-inch Samsung TV in my living room, and really love it. I'm very happy. I got a here for my SDR, and of course, this is where I see myself with the streaming at the same time. I've got a 555-inch TCL here, which is also surprisingly nice for the relatively cheap price that they sell for. And it's an Android TV. You can actually install Android apps through the Google Play Store in it. Um, I'm very happy with it. I've been using it for a year and a half now. Works great. Love it. It's mostly used for my computers. So PR 4470. I remember my parents a Curtis Math TV back in 1980. Man. Yeah, pretty much same experience here, Mike. WX50. Everything Panasonic I purchased was good, was quality, and lasted a long time. Douglas Perry, nice to have you here. Yarabamba bought a Sony Vega TV, which worked perfectly for many years. The issue, it was extremely heavy, and I had to discard it when I moved. You know, I didn't want necessarily to depart from it, but I had my when I moved here, I purchased a 26-inch Sony, and that was before, of course, any flat screen TVs and stuff like that. So, and we weren't even talking about HD TVs back then, still. And it was a great TV, and it was still working when I actually um, was still working when I actually put it out for the dumpster because it was just too big and too heavy. Um, it's sad because it was still working, and of course nobody wants it. David, I've bought quite a bit of stuff, radios, antennas, accessories off of AliExpress. Never had a bit of a problem. Everything smooth with them in my case. Interesting. Because I've seen so many stories and so many people actually even here on the channel that commented and said, I've never received the stuff I purchased. Um, it's sad. Westinghouse. And there's a lot of brands, we talk TVs and stuff, but there's a lot of brands that aren't really what they were before, like when you look at that, Westinghouse or whatever. Now you look at the stuff and it's like, yeah, it's Sylvania. Another example is I have the impression today that they kind of sold their name, and there are a lot of cheap stuff that isn't really high quality has some of those old brand names on them to try to sell them and have um Sanyo. I've had a lot of problems with Sanyo branded stuff. I they always the what I had purchased that was Sanyo branded was always kind of flimsy and always broke quite quickly for the stuff that I purchased. I was never really happy with the Sanyo brand myself. So I don't know. I never. I remember never buying Sanyo stuff afterwards, and always when I wanted to buy something, I always would just look. Does Panasonic make one of those? I want the Panasonic. Like my microwave is a Panasonic. I replaced my microwave 2, 3 years ago. I mean, that that Panasonic that I had before was more than 20 years old. A brand that I would not recommend. Huh? Hangrongda. Avoid this. 2 Hangrongda radios that I've got here. 2 crappy radios. Do not buy the HRD 747 or 737. You're going to waste your money. John Beckham, I think you have definitely gotten the word out to be cautious about purchasing the Hangrongda HRD 747. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't buy that. I am sad to see some of the reviews online where they're kind of almost pushing you to buy it. And I've looked at a few reviews, and once again, no names. I won't say which channels, but I look at what they did, and I'm like, that's not even testing. You're just like pushing this, pushing that. Look at that. It does that. Did you really test it? It's a crappy thing. Don't buy that. Don't buy that. You know? JD Okoda, back in the day, Sanyo was a budget Panasonic. It was owned by the same company, but made differently somehow. Papa, when I was a kid, we had wood grain cabinet TV by Electrohome. Lasted for years. Back in the days when stuff were made in Canada. Was the Enrong HRD 747 made by Sanyo? Keegan DXer on the Sanyo TV in October 1997 on DX3 channels. Channel 3, sorry. KVBC Las Vegas, Nevada in the summer of 2008. Wow. I remember the good old days of DXing the lower channels. David says either I'm lucky with my online purchases or maybe AliExpress and shipping services do work better when the destination is my QTH. Yeah, they're all looking at it and saying, yeah, that's David in Barcelona. Ship him the real stuff. Oh, man. Payola. So, hey guys, we've been on for almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 50 minutes. I'm a little tired, so I'm going to take it easy for the rest of the night, and hope that you enjoyed the show today. Still a very strong signal on 13730 right now for the Andorra Revival via Austria. So we're going to be back on Wednesday for our next show. Hope you enjoyed the show today, and stay safe, everybody, and take care. Always fun to be here, and hope that you enjoyed the show today. Diverse little things. Thanks for those that have used the super chat functionalities to give me a little tip. It was much appreciated. It's the first time that they were activated on the channel here, so really cool to have you all been using that. For those that have been using that for a little support, is much appreciated. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all, and see you soon next Wednesday on the channel. Bye-bye.